everybody. Welcome to another week, another episode of Carlie's Couch.
The Bouch.
With an actual couch this time. We got to clean it up, though. Y'all send us some pillows or something. We gotta decorate the space. And some paintings. We have this big old space behind us, and we need something.
And
we
y'all know what happened last time. Y'all know what happened last time we tried to have art.
We ended up with a Post-it note, so we don't want to do that again. But, yeah, just keep watching the video, because you'll just see the space evolve, hopefully.
Yeah, but I mean, we coming up. 2019, we got a vouch for real.
Right.
Shout out to all the haters. Philip, what up?
Dang, called him out actually by name.
No, he's the one who sent me a message like, how is it Carlie's Couch, but y'all don't actually have a couch?
It's a podcast. But okay. Today, Carlie came up with the topic that we want to discuss, so I'll let you kick it off.
Oh, man. Okay. Even though I came up with the topic.
She said, oh, man, like it was a lot of pressure.
So today it's about getting out of your own way. Dun, dun, dun. And I would explain it, but I feel like y'all will that's kind of self-explanatory, getting out of your own way. But throughout this, we'll talk about situations where we've noticed that we were standing in our own way to greatness. And to what did you say? The highest actualized versions of ourselves? You had something cool like that.
Something I talked about before. Now you're trying to put me on
fancy.
the spot. But let me ask you something, Carlie.
Okay.
Usually, like, as we go about our weeks or whatever, something will happen if we come up with a question or something that was on our mind. So did something necessarily happen with you or something that made you think of this as a topic?
I think I was just looking at where I am and where I want to be. And I noticed that the only thing really standing in my way is me. Mm-hmm. And I'm like,
But it's weird, right? Because I feel like we always know that. Like, how many quotes on Instagram do we see that say that same thing, right?
I know I got a list.
Usually it's when there's some issue, something we're trying to work on or change, like we've talked about before, where then you're really focused. Like when you're really trying to focus on this one thing and you're just not quite getting it, that's when it's like, okay, like what am I doing? Like,
yeah. Or when you find
why
yourself
is this not working?
in the same situation again and again, right? Like, oh man, I told myself I was going to do better last time and here I am.
Right.
Not doing better.
Doing bad. In fact.
The opposite. Like one of them like, man, I ain't never going to do this to myself again. And you'd be like, dang, I'm doing this to myself again. So that's kind of what inspired the topic. And as it was evolving, I was like, what isn't is really just getting out of your own way. But that's really easy to say, like, oh, let me just get out of my own way, But
I don't know, I think that's the hardest part is
right?
to make the realization that I need to get out of my own way, because a lot of times it's very easy to blame circumstance, blame your family, blame the money, blame whatever it is. But at some point, it's okay, what can I do to make the most out of this? Or what can I do to get past whatever this thing is?
And I think that's the most important part is realizing, like in this stage of my life, like I'm only trying to control the things that I can control. Like I can't control any of this other nonsense. So just working on me and what I can do.
So would you say that you're where you want to be?
I like how you flipped that on me, but not right now. I mean,
are we ever though?
Yeah, that's what I was about to say. So it's like being grateful for where I am, right? And all the growth. Like, y'all, we have a whole couch, 20 consistent episodes or 21. Like, I don't even know the numbers, but I'm really excited about where I am and where I'm going. But I think that even in this stage of my life, there is a lot of growth and a lot of things that I could be doing or doing better in that I'm not. And that's going to require some, things for me to take that part of my life to the next level, right? Are you where you want to be?
No, not in certain areas, but the only way I would answer it a little differently is that I feel like, of course, we're always aspiring to be better, and we always have ideas of things we can do to be better. But to say, are you where you want to be in particular areas of your life, where it's a pain point for me, then I can say, yes, that's how I identify it. If there are places where there's a pain point, because, we can cruise and like, of course, $1 million more would be awesome, But like, if I'm cool, like, okay, I'm cool. But in places where there are pain points where I'm like, this is hurting me or destructive to what I want to do or whatever, those are places where I think, okay, this is a top priority. Like, this is not what I want to be experiencing, like you said, over and over. And this is where something has to give besides me just saying something has to give.
So what's the difference for you? Like whenever it becomes a pain point, like at what point does it cross this threshold from annoying and like, let me just keep doing what I'm doing to like, nah, I actually have to do something now?
Unfortunately, a lot of times that's when you're in crisis mode, I guess. And perhaps we shouldn't have to wait for these things to be a pain point. But I think that's when, you have to go to the hospital because you fell out. Or that's when you have to seriously reconsider your whole financial situation because, oh man, why do I only have 50 cents right now for the 20th time in a month? You know what I mean? Whatever that thing is, or oh man, I got fired from my job because I was late for the 30th time. So at that point, I think where you really have a crisis on your hands or you're seeing it too many times and you can really see the value of what you're losing, then I think that's when you really kind of at the point where it's okay, that's a breaking point.
Yeah, and I want to be proactive so it doesn't take something like that big turn that flips my whole life upside down before I actually make the changes that I, need to make. And we are our own worst critics. And so it's not necessarily me beating myself. It was just come on, Carlie, we can do better. So let's do better. Right. I be talking to myself, y'all. So y'all just get to be included in that conversation today.
Nah, but I don't know. Do you think there is a time limit of how long you have to deal with something, or there's a reasonable amount of time that you're okay kind of getting by until it clicks? Or
I think it's so it's situation based, right? Situational in the sense that you don't know until you know. And it has to, you have to get tired of doing the same thing. Like I said, you either get tired of doing the same thing or you have one of those life interrupted moments or just this epiphany where you're you know what, I can do better. And so I don't think there's a set time limit, but it's very situational based, depending on what it is and depending on who it is. Because you see the relationships person A never changes until person B leaves them and then they change on movies. And that was their moment. And it you don't know how long that time will take, but it just is very situation based.
Right. And then also, so with our episodes, we like to be actionable about it. So we're going to both kind of think of our own stories, but also just go through ways that we have gotten out of our own way or are getting out of our own way, because it's always still an ongoing process with a lot of things. Because, I don't know about you, but for me, there's a lot of different areas. So, it's one thing at a time, I guess, for me.
One step at a time. And we won't keep y'all here all day, even though we could with how we're working. But just know that we working. And this is how.
So I'll do the first one.
Okay.
So the first thing I think that happens when you really are all right, I really want to do something different, and you're at a point where you're not just saying that, but you really mean it, is when it's much easier to be transparent and or vulnerable about your situation.
Yeah.
So at a point where I actually call my friend and say, man, I'm really struggling with this. I want to do something different. Or when you ask for a recommendation, maybe for, do you know any good blogs that can help with this? Do you know a professional who can help me with this or whatever? Then I feel when you're ready to open up and be honest, not just with yourself, which is really the hardest part probably, but then be honest with a close friend or a professional or whatever, then I think that's when you know, all right, I'm really trying to do something different.
Yeah, and that kind of goes back to the last question is, how do you know? It's whenever you really sit down with yourself and be am I doing the best that I can in this situation? Or why do I always feel like this when it comes to money or when it comes to relationships or when it comes to XYZ? Why do I always feel like this? But you don't have to feel like that. You can feel better. So what does that take? Sitting down and actually looking at yourself man, if I was real about this situation, I would know that, I'm not doing what I can at my job, or maybe I didn't get that promotion because I wasn't working in my best. And so I really like that one. For the first step is learning to be vulnerable, starting with yourself, but then possibly bringing other people on, because we're not islands. We need help, right? Whether it's podcasts and
not even
Googling.
Just a vent either. But when you're looking for advice or when you feel comfortable actually talking about your story, whatever that is, we've shared some of our old stories on older episodes as well. And it's I have no problem talking about that stuff because, I've kind of already processed it, and I was at a point where I was ready to talk about it when I did start talking about it. So I feel when you're at a point where the pain of continuing with this habit is worse than the embarrassment you might feel to talk about it.
Yeah.
Then let's talk about it and get it out the way. Let's face it.
Yeah, and that's really big. And also thinking about, I like what you said earlier, what would happen if you never faced it, right? Like these little moments of only having 50 cents in your bank account could lead to you getting kicked out of your apartment for not having your rent, or not being able to eat for a couple of days, and you might want to do something different. And so after you realize, like, okay, I have an issue or I have a problem where I'm not doing what I should be, and maybe talking to somebody or Googling resources first, then you have to kind of clarify like what you want to do. So what does that look like? So if we're going off the money example, if I only have 50 cents in my bank account, like what's happening? Like what's my goal? Like maybe I want to have a set amount of money, or maybe I just want to know where my money is going in general. And that could be a first step.
So that was my like personal example, was that this year I really wanted to focus more on the financial stability of my business and myself, because, you know, when you're working by yourself or you're running your own thing, it's really easy for like all the money just be all mixed up. And, you know, if you're freelancing or a lot of your work is like contract type work, sometimes a lot comes in, sometimes it doesn't. And sometimes it's a lot of up and down when you have a business. So for me, it's like, man, I've gone so long where I'm so focused on doing sales, because like I said, I can always pull stuff in, but then I'm not paying enough attention to, with my own account, like, I don't know when that Spotify $9.99 comes out, that Tidal $12.99 comes out, that FreshBooks $25 comes out, that everything. Like, there's so many things that are coming in and out, and I'm not as on top of it as I should be. So for me, I just started with a broad, like, all right, financial stability. And then I just had to think about what that looks like. And so I just wrote down the steps, like just set a timer, wrote down the steps, assess what's coming in and out. First of all, like that's just looking at the, you know, statements and stuff. 2 is reaching out to somebody. 3, talking to a friend of mine who does like credit repair. So working on all these different things at once. 4, looking at, all right, where do I owe money? Those old DC tickets that are going to who knows where. There's so many old things, old cards. It's like I need to catch up on or whatever it may be. But just like knowing and being very aware of what's happening so that I can then actually make a real budget, make a real plan. So all of it kind of goes together, but it was important to me first to make the decision and then just write down what are the steps, like what are the pieces to it, so I don't just look at a vision board that says financial stability all year, but I'm looking at actual steps that I can then plan out by month, by quarter, whatever it is.
No, I love that. But how did you know your steps? So like I get like very broad, like just assessing your situation, right? So first knowing where things are, like how did the other steps come together? Because you were very much like 1, 2, 3, like this is all the things that are happening.
I just kind of thought about what made sense in order. Like the first thing to me is like, all right, know what is coming in and out. Like pay attention to that, write it down. Then if next is I'm reaching out to somebody to help me make a budget. So now that I know what's coming in and out, all right, what do I need to cut out? What do I need to make room for as far as paying old things back? Or what I need to make room for donations? What do I need to actually be spending on food every, week and month, so understanding that. Then when I understand that, focusing on, all right, specifically with the business, looking even at your products and your sales, like which things I need to focus on to reach my goals better of what comes in, making financial forecasts to be able to look ahead and know like what all this time looks like. Whole time also, if part of this is, I want to get a new car, I want to do other things, whatever, credit on the side as well. And I know I have a friend who does work with that. He hooked me up crazy one time and then I still messed it up right after. But I know it works. So I was like, bet. So I could do that. So just looking at it to where, my timing may not fall perfectly on when I hope to do all of those different things. But once I had a plan, the next thing was just to get started. So,
no, that's dope. I want to ask, just digging a little bit deeper into that. So you were looking at all these things that were coming out. Did you then, so you looked at what's coming out. How did you, I guess, look at your projection? So just tying it into business or even tying it into how much money you want to make. Did you have an idea of how much money you wanted to make before and then you backtracked into it? Or did you look at like all of your expenses and things and then project?
It hasn't been done yet. So all I've done is like written out the plan. But one of the next steps that we were talking about as well, as far as reaching out to like a professional or asking for help, is what I did because I was first vulnerable with myself and one of my friends. He recommended me somebody that I kind of know of a little bit, but don't really know. But he recommended me a friend of his who worked with his financials. Nice. So, he has experience, and then he recommended him, and I had a conversation with him. And, he was saying everything that I'm thinking is right on target. It's just a matter of us doing it. And so that's part of his services. So that's another thing where it's like, Lex, if I've gone this long to where I could do all these things, we can go on YouTube and figure out how to do anything, but I'm just not doing it. So some people need to identify, is it that you just need the accountability, or do you really need the information? Like, where do you fall in that as well? Because for me, I very much just need accountability with a lot of things. So I don't let it fall by the wayside. And so to get back to what you actually asked me, talking to him, he was like, well, that's part of what he will do. He will sort through all of my bank stuff, and he will kind of help make the plan. Then we'll talk about it together as far as how should I be executing this to get to, point B and then C and then D. So he's kind of helping me with the strategy. So I was like, so should I still keep, jotting things down? He was like, nah, I'll do all that. So I was like, bet. And that's, kind of like the help I need. So when we meet up, he can explain things to me and give me the task to try to follow this.
No, that's dope. I think so. In my story, you're a step ahead of me. So I just it was really
you just had the thought.
Yeah. So these are from our life experiences. So Carlie needs to get out of her own way. And in that, so part of my company, Holistically Dope, what I do is create like curriculum and workshops and classes and different plans for businesses and schools and small groups and individuals and all those things for holistic health and wellness, like being the dopest version of yourself, mind, body, soul. Sounds amazing. And I'm really I'm grateful because I love teaching and I'm good at it, right? And coaching and all those things. Where I struggle is putting all that down on paper. And so packaging like a curriculum in the way that it would look to sell to like schools and corporations are a little bit easier, but schools is kind of where I'm like struggling with. And it's like, I know that I've been needing to do this, but it's always on the back of my to-do list. And I keep looking at it. And then I have friends like Charlie who keep asking about it. And I'm like, yeah, I'm working on it, not working on it. I'm thinking about it though. So in my head, I'm working on it, but I'm not. And I really had to sit down the other day when I was looking at my goals and my income and all of those things and be like, why is this not getting done? And
the answer is really because you're not doing it.
Because I'm not doing it. But also like digging, like, why am I not doing it?
Yeah.
Like, why is there this thing? And I think it's a couple, like one, and I know it sounds crazy, but being really vulnerable with myself. Like I wasn't a teacher. I used to be an engineer. And so I'm not necessarily as confident in creating this curriculum that's very much education style. Because I didn't go to school for any of that stuff. And I work with a lot of people who do. So my next step, what I'm doing, instead of like beating myself up for it or feeling bad, I'm just going to ask the people who actually do this for a living and be like, hey, these are my ideas. Can y'all help me translate this into a curriculum? Not because I can't do it myself, because I could Google and could look at all these curriculums and do it, but why not ask for help from the people who do it for a living?
I guess so. Hey, I guess we're on point because what's interesting is you telling that story. Now I start thinking of a few other things very easily. Same thing. Like I knew it became serious because I asked somebody. Like I really asked somebody. Like when I was working for a couple of years after undergrad, and I was like, all right, I know I wanted to go to grad school. I wasn't sure which way I should go. I asked some of my old professors. They were talking to me, asking me questions, and they helped me identify like, oh, you really like it, like culture and communications. Like, oh, you're right. But I couldn't really see it. Even with similar courses, like we're trying to create courses so that you can bring in revenue. A friend of mine who also listens to this podcast, he reached out and was like, yo, I'd love to help work on that. And I'm like, bet, I'd love for you to help me build out a course, and then we can just do like a revenue split on, actually selling it or whatever. But I'm like, I never get to my own stuff sometimes. I'm so busy doing other people's stuff or whatever. But we have to prioritize. But it's not until you bring somebody in, ask somebody, whatever, that you can't get the ball rolling. And again, that's part of the accountability, I guess, too.
It is. And I love like being accountable to yourself first, right? Because if I'm not taking care of my things, like I can't take care of anybody else's stuff. And then that's maybe why I feel so much pressure, or why sometimes when I'm like doing all these social media for other people, I'm like, my social media is just suffering. And I'm like, ugh.
Right.
It's like, why do I feel like this? Because I'm not taking care of home first. And so that's a goal. So,
And I wonder if that, not to take this to a deeper level that we don't have notes on, but I wonder if us taking care of other people sometimes before we take care of ourselves is a part of that, where we have issues as well with our own, like, validation or your own self-love and all of that stuff, that you would be prioritizing. And so it really does give you, like we've been talking about the last few episodes, a small wins, a little momentum when you just get the ball moving, even if you're talking to somebody and getting a plan together. And you really feel good about yourself. And so I feel like overall, like just getting out of your own way, the hurt is just like getting pricked at the doctor's office or something. Like it hurts for just a second, and then it's like, bet it's all good from there because we're getting momentum and you're actually starting to see something change.
Yep. And it's that first, like that first being vulnerable with yourself and being honest in that situation, and then assessing like what you need. Okay, well, what do I actually want from this? What do I need? And then making a commitment, like investing in yourself. And that might like cost some money. Like that might take some time. That might take like some of your quote unquote freedom to like travel and do all these things. Like if you have to stay and take a course and maybe do what you need to
sit
do.
at home and not go nowhere. Golly. What does that look like for you? Like with an example that you just gave, or with another example maybe you've thought of, what does an investment and commitment look like?
So it looks like all of those things. Like, so taking a course, like last year, in order to get better at teaching and understanding mindfulness, like I took a course, which took money and time. Like I took time off work. Like cause at the studio that I work at, I invested a lot of money for this thing. And it took a lot of research to figure out which one I wanted to do, a lot of introspection to figure out, because there's a ton of courses on like meditations and dynamic mindfulness and all these things, and figure out like which one fit who I was. So it was like time, money, like freedom, like sacrificing all those things. But in the end, it's not really sacrificing because it's working towards what I want to do. And it just enriches my life. So it's like anything worth having is worth working for. And also being real lazy today.
And also if you find yourself making a commitment and really going in because you feel like this is something that's good for you, but then you really are like, you can't stick to it, or you really don't like it, then maybe that kind of is a signal that thing might not be for you. And you kind of go back to going down a different path or trying something else, honestly. Like sometimes there is a point where you need to assess, like, is this too hard, to the point where it's not just a challenge for you, but this isn't where you're lined up to be.
You know, synchronicity is so good. So
what happened?
When I was in...
What happened, girl?
Hey. So whenever I just got back from the Philippines, so excited. We can talk about that in a different episode. I have a tan, so look at the video to see the couch and my tan.
Compare the videos.
But I was like flying back on a plane, but I had left my book because we were at a beach, and so I didn't want to bring this big book. And so I just had my phone, and I remembered that I had a book on my phone. Haven't read this book or looked at it or thought about it in probably a year, maybe 2. And it's called Inspired and Unstoppable by Tama Keeves. And I picked it up, and it was on page 77. I just kept going from where I was. And it literally is talking about living an inspired life and like working in your purpose. And because y'all know that's my jam. So a lot of stuff that me and Lex talk about here on the podcast is finding what's right for you, whatever that looks like. Anyways, to connect it to this and to end this long story, she was talking about, is there something that you have been struggling so hard to do, something so basic that you're almost embarrassed at yourself, like filling out an invoice or sending an email, like, and then really getting honest and digging deep within yourself, like, why am I struggling? Why does it feel like I'm pulling teeth just to like do this one thing at my job? And it's because you might not be working in something that you're supposed to be doing. And so taking an assessment, like I'll read more and then be able to share more, but taking an assessment of all the things that you're doing, what comes with ease? We talked about working in your passions in the last episode, like what really comes with ease, and what like can you work on and learn, but what are you like really not doing, and starting to think about why you're struggling so hard to do it, outside of like laziness or whatever. And
if those are components that are necessary for developing or growing and building a business, then really Tim Ferriss talks about that in like 4-Hour Workweek, that you write down those things that you enjoy doing about your work, what you don't like so much, you never want to touch again. And that's where you really need to do, going back to the investment, bring in a virtual assistant or bring in somebody who can help, because those are things that have to get done. So like for me, going back to the investment and commitment, my investment is to pay this man who's a financial manager to help me develop my plan, and then touch base with me month to month about us following through and getting it done. And it's not so much that, like we said, I can't find the information, but if I invest in myself, like I'm not just going to let that money go to waste. And to me, it's worth it in a place where I really, really, really just struggle. And a lot of it may be mindset. And as soon as I start to see things clearing up and become more easy for me to understand and like know what I'm looking at when I'm looking at my statements and stuff, then I think it'll all be worth it to have put that investment into it and have somebody else do it who knows what they're doing.
Exactly. We all perform better whenever we're working in our strengths, right? Like, that's why, like, I love being an engineer, but it wasn't for me because that's not, like, where I flourish. Like, I can do it because I can do anything, but it's, like, not where I flourish. And so now taking yours, like, looking at what you're doing and looking at where you flourish and maybe where you could give that work to somebody else, like delegate. Thank you. I was like, what is that word, Carlie? Where you can delegate other things. And also looking at, like, maybe you're just being too much of a control freak with things. Like, that's also it. Like, well, no, I feel like I have to do all these things, but you don't. You can find somebody that you trust, work with, or learn a quicker way to do what you need to do.
Think of all these people that you say you want to be like or that you study, and none of them are doing everything. None of them are doing everything.
Like, when they say if you had the same 24 hours, you have the same 24 hours in a day as Beyonce, but Beyonce got a lot of people that help Beyonce do what she does.
Ivy taking all the fire photos and everything.
And
like,
rapping now.
Right.
She gonna drop a mixtape for you, do.
I wish I was Beyonce.
I wish I was Blue Ivy.
Right. One of them. Shoot, I don't even care.
Both?
I don't care which one. Both of them, all of them. But anyway, since we're not the Carters, back to Carlie's couch. One day we'll have Beyonce on the couch.
We will.
Ooh, let's speak that.
Yes.
Let's speak that.
Come on.
All right.
Queen
One day
Bee,
we're going to
baby.
get Queen Bee on here.
She gonna be on here with her H-Town accent.
Thank you.
H-Town.
Okay, not for us to be so far off on a tangent, though, because we got real excited about Beyonce.
We did. Mindset. You said something.
Yeah.
Sorry that I just cut you off, but I got real excited whenever you were talking about mindset. So looking at all the things that we have that we struggle with to do, looking at just where we are with ourselves, like, nothing changes if your mind doesn't change. And your perspective, like, maybe you are at this job that you don't necessarily love, but you need to be there to pay rent or to take care of your family or to do whatever. So maybe you can look at changing your perspective. So instead of, oh my God, I have this job that I have to go to in the morning, I have to get up early. You have a job that you get to go to in the morning. You get to get up early. You get to see another day. Like, just kind of changing your perspective. And I know it's not always that easy. And Lord, by no means am I saying that I always have this mindset. But anytime I catch myself struggling with, I have to do this, or grumbling about things, it's like, no, you get to do this. Even working out. Like, I'm so happy that my body is healthy enough to do this, even though I'm struggling.
And even in the vein of getting out of your own way, I think mindset is important in that how you frame your goal that you're looking to do. So not necessarily like you're looking at what's left, but you're looking at how far you are going or that you got something done. So at the end of the day, for me, maybe if I split up this goal into little pieces to where maybe one hour a week, I just put down in my planner that I want to spend that time looking at what's going on maybe. Or you say, for 1 hour, I'm going to put down on my week somewhere, 30 minutes, whatever it is, that I'm going to call somebody or do some YouTubing or whatever to figure out, learning more about how to do your curriculum, whatever it is. Looking at it like at the end of the week, oh, I did that. For me, actually, that is what I started doing at the gym as well. And the accountability too. I told my trainer, I was like, yeah, I'm coming, 3 times a week now. And I just told him like that. And like every day, like I dap him up and we're like day one, like every day is a new day one because I'm just taking it one day at a time. But then I can look at the end of the week at my planner and where I had gym, I now on the good things that happened this week, I made it all 3 times.
Check.
Next week, I made it all 3 times. Like, so seeing, what you are getting done, even if I missed one, maybe it's like, I got there 2 times this week. So focusing on the positive of your goal and not like the negative of what you're missing or losing or not doing.
And taking it one day at a time. Like waking up in the morning. So let's say you're trying to get that credit score right, just taking it a day at a time, not looking at, oh man, it's going to take me a year to do this. But when it goes to 10 points, celebrate that, right? And like celebrate yourself.
And I think, like you just said, oh man, it's going to take me a year to do this. It's interesting how we use that as an excuse to not move forward with our goals, but we don't think about it like, oh man, I'm going to go another year having a 500 credit score. But yet that doesn't affect us.
Yeah.
And so even the opposite of what we just said with the positive, sometimes thinking about like, what do you really stand to lose? Like, do you really want to go another year, another 6 months still saying the same thing? What D. Lolo Darius said on her episode, don't you get tired of hearing your same mouth and like hearing yourself say the same things over and over? Like at some point it's like, yo, am I doing this or not? And so with me, like, and maybe it's still the energy of the new year, which I'm like, bet I don't, care how cliche that might sound, but I really feel like I've been like trying to just recommit to these areas of things I need to do.
Yeah.
And it just feels good just doing those little steps. Like when I got off the phone with the financial guy, I felt really good because in my mind, I knew like, okay, I'm committed to doing this thing. And so it gives you a whole different energy shift, I think.
Yeah. And that's such a beautiful thing. Like, get excited about those little moments. And, you know, I also, even though I used to like laugh about the new year, new me thing, like why is that something to, like, people are trying to do better.
Like, at whatever point you make a realization, get started, whether it's
and try to help
January 1st or whatever.
Try to help hold yourself and maybe your friends and the people in your circle accountable. Like, ask them, like, I'm sad that I didn't know that was something you needed to work on. Part of me is like, okay, now I know I can help hold you accountable. Like, why you order from Postmates again?
Don't ask me about that. Yo, I got like my groceries. I did some meal prep and stuff. I'm like, my trainer called me spaghetti one day because I was like, yeah, I ate some spaghetti for breakfast. I was hungry. Like, I've been starving.
That's because your metabolism is ramping back up.
I've been starving.
She been throwing them kettlebells around. I see you, girl.
Bro, he trying to kill me. Shout out Ryan Kelly at the factory.
Hey.
Y'all follow my IG stories and you'll see him. You can come through for free too if you want to. He'd love to see you. But you might not make it out.
I'm gonna have to come through.
Yeah, you still have to come through too. But yeah, like there's just, with these steps, I feel like we've talked before about making changes and all that, and yet somehow today's felt different to us because I don't know if maybe just we're on point and we're just really been thinking about these things right now because I literally have like 8 examples of where I'm like, I started talking to people, I started making a plan, and like I see how I can do this in different areas, but I'm going to take it, you know, in certain places where just the commitment of getting to the gym or the commitment of, you know, paying this guy to do what he needs to help me get started. Like with those things, I think as the commitment gets easier, now I just kind of keep adding more things to the plate as far as, you know, that's become easy. Now, what else can I do the same process with? Because I think you can do it with anything just about.
You can. And I think whenever you're not taking care of things, they're like weeds in a garden, right? They're taking up way more space than they need to because you're not tending to them. So once you tend to them, you feel like Superwoman, you feel like ready to conquer the world, and it gives you energy that's not being drained in other areas. Just like when they say like, oh, like protect your peace and protect your space. Like that's so real whenever you get rid of the things that drain you, or you create systems so they don't drain you anymore. Yeah. Like you feel so much more energized. And that's why she was like, well, you know what we're going to talk about today? And I was like, you know, getting out of my own way. Like,
right. It sounds good to me. So getting out of your own way, you can do that by being real and transparent with yourself, getting vulnerable, clarifying your goal, making a plan, asking for help, making a commitment and investing in yourself, and by having an accountability partner. So those are, I think, a lot of pretty solid ways that you can begin to get out of your own way and actually see some movement, some change in whatever areas you're looking to improve in.
I think I want to add one, and that's celebrating progress, celebrating daily, minute, like every time you do go to the gym, that's worth a celebration. And maybe that celebration isn't a soul food meal, but
right. I was about to say that's another term for that.
But just, celebrating those things. And if y'all have any other steps or things that you're doing or that you've done to get out of your own way, screenshot that you're listening, hashtag Carlie's Couch, at Lextopia and CC Fierce. Let us know what you're working on. Man, she didn't sing today though, y'all. I'm a little disappointed.
I sing because I'm happy, so not today.
You're not happy?
Clap along if you feel like.
More time legend, so you ain't shit.
I don't even know how this song goes, the happy song. Anyway.
Oh, that's for real.
Yeah, for real.
You made it. You sounded like a lounge
It did.
singer.
It did. It's because if you haven't noticed, my throat's a little. Gotta put something on that, some tea or something.
No pause.
See, and you knew Carlie had to be nasty for the end of the show too.
Make it nasty.
No, but I'm glad we got a nice little to the point episode for y'all. We didn't want to be talking your head off too much. Hopefully your commute to work or from work or wherever lunch break isn't too long, so that you can listen to us on the way. But Carlie, I think you said you had a shout out of the week for today.
I do. I'm going to shout out Change the Tune and Green Dot for the Student Institute for Business and Leadership. It's for young women of color, and it works on teaching life skills and business skills and mindfulness, and helps with getting into school. Anyways, all these amazing programs that I'm so blessed to be a part of, founded by Charlie Kemp. She's the bomb. Her nonprofit is called Change the Tune. You can check them out. changetune.org and at Change the Tune on Instagram.
Okay. Shout out to them. And the question of the week.
Lex, where is the path to serenity?
The path to serenity is in the clarity and self-awareness of understanding what does and does not really matter.
Oh,
you like how that came out? You like how that came out?
She got me. She been had this answer planned.
Nah, but it came to me.
It did.
It hit me like a.
Oh wow, that's beautiful.
That's the serenity.
Wow,
when you know what matters and what doesn't matter.
And how do you know?
That's what did I say? When you have the clarity and self-awareness, when you feel it, like when you're aware enough to like, this person saying this or this thing happening to me, this certain things matter and certain things just don't matter. Like, I don't know how to explain it more than that.
Yeah, no, it's beautiful. Mine, I was gonna say the path to serenity is inside. And what I mean by that is everything that you need is already inside of you. And the moment you stop looking for external things, validation, love, anything else outside of you to fill what you need, you'll find a sense of peace.
I totally agree with that as well. And I totally understand that.
Look at us philosophizing
today.
Know.
See, it looks like we're getting wiser at every episode. Oh, wow. One day we're just going to be on the sofa glowing. We're going to be like floating on the sofa. Wow. You guys.
It's lit. When Beyonce's here, mark our words.
We're going to all be floating. That's going to be the final episode.
We just dropped the mic. We done. We ain't recording no more.
We're tired. But not yet. So thank you for listening to this episode of Carlie's Couch, and we'll see you next week.
Happy Monday, y'all.
Bye.